Welcome back. Today, we're diving into a pretty wild theory of existence, one that imagines God not as a person, but as a giant star of plasma, and us, well, as fallen gods. It's a unique take on faith, history, and why we're even here.
So let's just start with the central question this whole cosmology is built on. It really frames everything we're about to get into. This idea that being human isn't our natural state, but actually, it's a kind of prison sentence.
All right, here's the game plan for today. We're going to start with the whole idea of a cosmic punishment. Then, we'll trace a line of messengers, from Zoroaster all the way to Muhammad. After that, we'll look at a mystical key, how nature might play a role in all this, and finally, wrap it all up with how this story might just be on a repeating loop.
Okay, let's jump right into this foundational idea. According to the source material we're looking at, the very reason we exist here on Earth is because we're serving a sentence, one handed down from a cosmic judge.
First things first, we've got to adjust our concept of God for this framework. Forget any human-like figure. In this view, the supreme being is called the grand star, a giant, impersonal ball of cosmic plasma.
And if God is a giant plasma star, then what does that make us? You guessed it, we're tiny plasma stars. The idea here is that we were once divine beings, basically gods, but we messed up, we became corrupt, and our punishment for that? We got sent here, to Earth. And these human bodies we're in, they're called clay beings. Think of them as temporary prisons, specifically designed to teach us a lesson. The whole point is that we're born forgetting who we really are, so we have to experience mortality and, hopefully, learn the humility we were lacking before.
So, okay, if humanity has a collective case of amnesia about its divine origins, how are we ever supposed to remember? Well, according to this theory, the grand star sends help. It sends messengers, and it all starts with the very first one in this chronology.
Now, this sequence of prophets is absolutely central to the whole story. You've got a chain of command, in a way, and each messenger has a very specific job. It kicks off with Zoroaster, who brings the first word. He's followed by Moses, who writes down the law. Then comes Jesus, whose mission is to get the key, and finally, you have Muhammad, who's here for the reestablishment. And this is where the dots start connecting in a really interesting way. The Magi, right? They were the priests who guarded Zoroaster's original message, the first word, for centuries. This framework suggests that these are the very same wise men who, drawing from the Gospel of Matthew, show up to visit the infant Jesus. It creates this direct through line from the first messenger to the third.
But the connections go even deeper than that. The source proposes that these messengers aren't always unique individuals. Sometimes it's the same soul coming back to finish a job in a different time.
So, after hundreds of years of this message being passed down orally by the Magi, Moses arrives on the scene. And his primary role? He's the scribe. His job is to finally write down those ancient teachings from Zoroaster. And the result, in this view, is the Torah. Now we get to what the source itself calls an intellectual Gnostic guess. It's this radical idea that Moses was actually reincarnated about 1400 years later as Muhammad. The theory even gives a strange reason for the name change, suggesting that the soul had a damaged tongue and couldn't pronounce Moses clearly, so it used Muhammad as a kind of proxy title.
And you can really see this idea of an echo in their actions. It wasn't just a soul that was supposedly the same, it was the mission. The source highlights this parallel between Moses confronting the people worshipping the golden calf and Muhammad cleansing the Kaaba of its idols. They're both presented as reformers, fighting against the spiritual corruption of their day.
So if Moses and Muhammad are two chapters in one soul's journey, and Zoroaster delivered the opening line, where does Jesus fit in? What was his unique, pivotal role in this whole cosmic drama?
In this version of the story, Jesus' ultimate mission actually takes place after his crucifixion. He goes down into the underworld, but not just to defeat it. He goes there to get something specific, a powerful tool from Lucifer himself, the key of life.
So why does this key matter so much? Well, it's a total game changer for how reincarnation works. Before Jesus, a soul like Moses might have had to wait in the afterlife for thousands of years before coming back. But with the key of life, Jesus now has authority over that whole process. He can speed it up, which allows Moses to return as Muhammad in a much shorter time frame.
Okay, this all raises a pretty big question, right?
If this whole hidden history is true, how is a regular person, a clay being born without any memory of this, supposed to figure it all out?
And this is where the story takes a fascinating turn, moving away from theology and history and into a kind of natural mysticism. The source suggests that the grand star actually left some biological tools here on Earth to help us reconnect.
The logic basically goes like this. We are clay beings, right? We're made from the earth. Well, ancient fungi are also deeply connected to the earth. The theory proposes that because of this shared connection, these fungi can act as organic antennae. They can tune our physical bodies back to the frequency of our plasma souls of the spirit world. And this connection is what can trigger those feelings of oneness, giving us just a glimpse, a fleeting memory of who we really are. And now we've come to the final, really mind-bending piece of this entire cosmic puzzle. It turns out this whole story we've been following, it's not a straight line.
The argument is that this isn't a one-time event, it's a recurring loop. The source even pulls in older stories, like Plato's Atlantis, to suggest a repeating pattern. A civilization gets divine knowledge, it grows powerful, then it becomes corrupt, it gets destroyed, and then the whole cycle of sending messengers has to start all over again.
So when you boil it all down, you just see these core themes repeating over and over. Every single cycle has the same ingredients. We forget where we came from, we're punished in these physical bodies, prophets are sent to remind us, their message always gets corrupted by powerful institutions, and through it all is this constant personal struggle just to remember.
And that leaves us with the ultimate question this whole framework puts on the table. If we really are living inside a story that just repeats, doomed to forget and be reminded over and over and over, what is the one crucial thing we're supposed to finally understand? What's the piece of information that lets us finally break the cycle? That's definitely something to chew on.